Pokemon was released in 1999 in the US, and since then it's become one of the largest grossing franchises in the world, and I wanted to talk about the character who started it all. But before we do that, cue the intro.
How are you hitting me?
Oh my god! Red was the main protagonist in Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. And I want to talk about his lore and what I think about him as an overall character. Going into this video, I have 25 years of Pokemon to cover. So, I'm going to be using both the mainline games and Pokemon Origins. The only reason I'm going to be using Pokemon Origins, even though it is not canon, is to clear up some continuities. Besides that, we're not going to use him for anything else. And since Red is the mainline protagonist of the Kanto games, excluding Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, his team is going to vary depending on what the player chooses. And since I'm looking at this from a lore perspective, I'm going to say that his mainline team that he played with while going through Kanto is the earliest team that we've seen him use while he's an NPC, which is on Mount Silver. Red's journey starts off in Palatown, just like a very popular TV show character. At 10 years old, he decided that he was going to become the best there ever was. He goes to choose a starter, and he can either pick Charmander, Bulbasaur, or Squirtle. And we have no idea what he picks, so this is when I'm going to be using the continuity. In the TV show, Red chooses Charmander as his starter because his name's Red and fire is red. After picking a starter with his longtime rival Blue, they travel through the Kanto region. The first gym leader that Red beats is Brock and then Misty, because in order to get to the other gym leaders, the first two gyms he will encounter are Brock and Misty's gyms. He takes on the remaining 5 gym leaders, but we have no idea which order he did that in, but we do know one thing. We know that he had to defeat Koga before Blaine, because in order to use Surf, you have to beat Koga, and in order to get to Blaine, you have to use Surf. During his journey, he discovers an evil organization that goes by the name of Team Rocket. He first discovers them in Mount Moon, then on the Nugget Bridge where they ask him, "Hey, you want to join Team Rocket?" Raids their hideout in Cerulean City, kicking them out of the Pokemon Tower in Lavender Town, and stopping their takeover of Silph in Saffron City. During all this meddling, Red manages to defeat the leader of Team Rocket, Giovanni, both in their hideout and in Silph. Giovanni runs away and isn't seen for quite a while. The next time we see him is at the 8th gym because for some reason he's the 8th gym leader. After Red defeats Giovanni as a gym leader, he disbands Team Rocket and isn't seen ever again. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but if a whole evil team was defeated by a child, were they really that big of a threat? He traversed Victory Road and beat the Elite Four. He then finds his lifetime friend Blue as the champion because he became champion right before Red challenged the Elite Four. Red takes on Blue and wins with ease. He is now the champion and he travels to the Sevi Islands to defeat the remaining Team Rocket stragglers. When going to Mount Moon, he doesn't tell anyone and just brings his Pokemon. His mother doesn't even know where he is. 3 years later, the Gen 2 and 4 games take place, but I'm only going to focus on the Gen 2 games because their main character is the only one that's relevant. The Gen 2 character, who I can't remember his name, takes on the Johto region, becomes champion, only after he collects 16 gym badges from both regions. Oak allows him to go up to Mount Silver. There, Red is discovered after 3 years of training. They fight and the undefeated Red loses. He leaves and is a sore loser because he isn't seen again for quite a while. The next time we see him is in Pokemon Black and White 2. One thing I do want to acknowledge is Red's sprite. Red's Heart Gold Soul Silver sprite is identical to his Black and White 2 sprite. So, I'm just assuming that Game Freak got lazy and didn't make him a new sprite, because if he pulled an Ash and didn't age after several years, that would be very concerning. He returned to social life, a part of the Pokemon Champions World Tournament. There you see other champions such as Blue, Lance, Steven, Wallace, Cynthia, and Alder. His team from Heart Gold Soul Silver is the same team in this tournament. The only difference is that he rotates between the Pokemon depending on what format he's playing in. Unfortunately, that's the last time we've seen Red in the original timeline. But at the same time, it's been 11 years since we've seen a game in the original timeline. Since Black and White 2 were the only games in it. I'm going to correct that statement. I have no idea if Pokemon Sword, Shield, Legends Arceus, or Scarlet and Violet are in the original timeline. Legends Arceus I don't think is in the original timeline. I don't think it's in any of the timelines because that means that the canon of Phone's existence in the main timeline games is broken since the main character who you play as has the Arc Phone. I think Sword and Shield is in the Mega timeline because I'm pretty sure you can Mega Evolve in that game. And there's no proof for Scarlet and Violet. I'm hoping that the DLC for Scarlet and Violet tells me I'm wrong because original timeline Red, having him come back would be so cool. Now we're going to be talking about the Mega Timeline games, which have some similarities, but have a lot of differences at the same time. Pokemon Let's Go and Eevee are the first games in the Mega Timeline. Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu are the first games in the Mega Timeline. There's only a couple major differences. First off, you're no longer playing as Red. The major difference is him. In the original timeline, Red is the one who has the Pokedex and defeats Team Rocket. Because of this, we know that Red and Blue took their journey years before the Pokedex was even invented. According to Blue, they just wrote stuff down in a notebook. That means that in this timeline, Red isn't as cool and isn't as powerful as he was. He still can be, but he just didn't defeat Team Rocket, which means he might not be on Mount Moon. These are major differences, and I'm going to ignore them for now, but you can't ignore them forever. His team is the exact same as it was in Heart Gold and Soul Silver on Mount Silver, and in Black and White 2, with one caveat. That one caveat is that he no longer has Charizard or Blastoise. Instead, he has Machamp and Arcanine. After you defeat him, he just disappears and isn't seen again for quite a while. He does do some trading with Blue between that and his final timeline-wise appearance. The last time we saw him was in Pokemon Sun and Moon. In Pokemon Sun and Moon, they are brought back to be the bosses of Alola's Battle Tree. This time, he has the exact same team he used on Mount Silver, but that's only his pre-Battle Tree team. Once you're in the Battle Tree, he rotates between every single Pokemon except one, Pikachu. But I'm assuming Pikachu would rather be with Ash, so I'm just going to ignore it. Red hasn't been seen since the Let's Go games, which were released 5 years ago, and I think we're a little bit overdue for him to come back. Does Red fall under the classification of a good lore character? I believe he is, because it's so reoccurring, but Pokemon manages to write him in a way where he somehow remains relevant somehow. Even though he just has minor parts, he's still relevant within the game. I think it's really cool how he's the only protagonist that shows up in games as an NPC, not being the protagonist of a game. Overall, I'm going to be giving Red an 8 out of 10. I think he was an amazing character with two things that flawed him. One being that he's split up into multiple timelines. Just because Pokemon wanted an explanation on why Mega Evolution exists, doesn't mean they needed to do it. If you look at the anime, they just threw it in there and didn't care about an explanation. The other point was deducted because of the length of time it's been since we've seen him. We've seen him in the Gen 1 games, the Gen 2 games, the Gen 2 remakes, the Gen 5 remakes, Gen 7, and the Gen 1 remakes on the Switch. If he doesn't make an appearance soon, I'm concerned that we're never going to see him again, and with that fear being a possibility, I can't give him a 9 out of 10. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you want to watch another video, the video on the left was when I was an electric type gym leader in Pokemon this gym of mine. And if you want to subscribe, click the button on the right. Thank you so much for watching and have a good one. Peace!